You had a bit of good news over the last 10 days or so with the first quarter figures. Revenue was up 2.2%. Spending was down. Some people would have to say that you're like a magician to be able to manage that trick. But how did the government was able to do that?
I think what's most important is that we are following a budget that we had laid out in February. And the first quarter was the first quarter of our own budget. So last year, of course, the budget was a budget that we inherited. We were able to make some minor adjustments. But this year was our first full budget. And in our first full budget, we had indicated that we were going to make investments in not only economic growth, but also in areas such as education and healthcare to ensure that those persons who are having challenges can be supported in the improvement of their lot in life. And so we are on track, not only with our budget estimates that we're on track, but I thought it was important, especially with some of the noise that was coming from certain segments of the community, including the opposition, to lay out the facts. And the facts are that our revenues were up. Our spending, when compared to the spending for a year ago, was down. Our deficit had narrowed by 24%. Visitor air arrivals in during that period of April to June were up, and that's compared to last year where there was the period of the America's Cup. So it's important to note that air arrivals are up on the America's Cup period. And also in addition to that, and I think which is most important, is that there was a recording from the Department of Social Insurance that there are 322 more people working inside of the Bermuda economy than there were a year ago. And out of that 322, 83% of those persons are Bermudian. So I think that represents excellent progress. But it's important to note that one quarter does not a year make. And we have a lot of work to continue to do. But it was important for the government to actually set out where we are and to make sure that people were aware of the facts. Because a lot of times you hear things that are conjecture, but the only place that the facts can come from are the facts and figures from the government.
You know, I would have been one of the people who would have said would have been an amazing trick for you to get more people in here with the America's Cup and the spending during that point in time. So how are you and the partners at the Bermuda Tourism Authority able to attract more people here?
Well, I can't speak to the specifics of what the Bermuda Tourism Authority is doing with the money of which they're getting from the government of Bermuda. But what I can state is that when we were in opposition and when we became the government, we said that we would put additional investment into tourism to ensure that we can better market Bermuda to tourists. And I think that you are seeing the results of that increased investment into tourism. So that was something that we committed to do when we're in opposition. We said that we did when we're in government, and I think that we're being able to see some of the results of that.
Now, one of the interesting things is you were able to give us figures of more people employed. Usually we have to wait for the employment survey to come out, which is usually a year after the fact sort of thing. Is there a reason why we can't get those figures on a more regular basis if you're going to get it for the social insurance figures?
It's something that we've always complained about inside of government, and so for us, I'm trying to find out ways that we can get better and more actionable data, and this means an issue of joining up various government systems so they can talk to one another. This is a report that we have used, so I axed this report. I went back and tried to get additional data out of this report, and the social insurance figures are a useful indicator of real-time employment inside the economy. Are they perfect figures? No. Are they as accurate as the employment survey figures? Not entirely, but they at least show a trend, and their trend of the people that are paying into social insurance does mirror the trends of which we've seen over time. So I think it is a useful real-time indicator of that, and that's the reason why we felt that we would share those figures.
So can I elicit a promise from you that maybe we'll get those figures every quarter or every month? Is that possible?
Oh, I think it certainly is possible that we can report those figures. Once I've started reporting them, I'm sure that people will be asking for me to continue to report those figures.
Yeah, I know we get more detailed information from the other surveys that are done, but at least in other countries they release the monthly figures on how employment is, and I think people would want to know how the economy is going.
Absolutely. The thing is, of course, those countries are much larger than than Bermuda is, but we are working on making sure that we can have better actionable data in a quicker fashion.
Now, another one of the things that you highlighted, but also a lot of people are surprised about, is spending is down, yet you've given a raise to civil servants. You've hired some positions that were left fallow. So where were you able to make the cuts to make that happen?
What this is really about, it's about the prudent management of the government purse. Now, the fact is that yes, you can unfreeze a hiring freeze that is there, and a hiring freeze may make up for positions where departments are very, very understaffed. But at the same point in time, you have priorities, so you may not be spending in other areas. So we have a budget. The budget was established that we're going to do the best to hold the line on spending, and during the first quarter of the year, we've been successful in doing that.
Right. You talked about the number of people that were working from the social insurance figures. How many of those were government hires?
I cannot give you that exactly, but I'm happy to get back to you on those figures. They were the same figures were asked in Parliament insofar as the difference between in the certain jobs. We have been able to break them down to that level, but I'm not entirely sure of the variance of the government payroll year over year. It is not that much though, because though there are positions that have been unfrozen, government recruitment does take a while to kick in. So it does take a while to actually get people hired. And at the same point in time that you are hiring people, you also have to understand that people will also be leaving the public service or also retiring.
Also dealing with the figures and things. Today, the retail sales index came out. It was down. It's the third month in a row that sales have been down. How do you've got more people working, yet people are spending less, even combined with overseas spending.
The retail sales numbers, I would say that are notes, but I think what is important, and I think that comes to another aspect which is critically important for us, as our economic recovery continues, we have to make sure that there are things that are fixed or mandatory costs in our economy that we get a handle on. And one of those particular issues are those of mortgage rates. So it would not surprise me that retail spending is down when we are seeing that interest rates for mortgages have gone up significantly as our interest rates largely track what happens in the United States. The United States they reduce their taxes, they increase their spending, which means that their economy is going to be turbocharged, and the central bank will see those conditions and will raise interest rates to attempt to fight off inflation. The challenge is that those increase in interest rates will then affect people here in Bermuda, where our economy may not be in the exact same condition as the United States. So what that will mean is that there are people who are getting notes, and I hear this from my constituents, that are getting notes from their banks that are saying your interest payments or your monthly mortgage payments are going to go up by this much and this much over the next few months. That is without question a challenge, and if we do not figure out a solution to that particular problem, we are going to not see the economic recovery of which we want to see. So the government is looking at how we can address that particular issue. It might require a creative solution, but I think that on the overall balance inside of the economy, if there are people who are paying less on their mortgage rates, that means that there is more money to spend inside the economy, more money to save, and more money to invest, which will lead to economic growth, as opposed to right now, those rents being extracted from the economy and basically going to the profit lines of the bank.